Welcome. My name is Ron Papa Schmidt, and I'm the creator of the Net Zero Now YouTube channel. And when we did a pilot of this channel, we got some questions back, and one of them was people had some trouble navigating the channel and finding the particular video they want to look at. So we decided to create this Start Here video, which tells you how to navigate the channel. And then the second thing, we frequently got the same questions from a number of people. So we maybe thought we'd probably address some of those questions also in this initial video. So here's the channel's history. I decided to really create this channel in late June of 2025. And we started with a soft launch in August of 25, I think 5 or 6 videos. And then we did an expanded pilot in September. And based on that feedback, we've gone in and made some changes, etc., and things like that. And now we're getting ready for our official launch sometime in October. And the goal is to sort of generate at least 2 new videos every single month. And I think when we launch, we'll probably have 10 to a dozen videos out there already. Now, here's some of the questions that we received. The first one is, you're retired, you have no climate background, you've never done any video background, so why are you trying to create a YouTube channel? What are you doing, Sort of like, are you insane, That question first started with my wife and then proceeded with the same question from a number of friends. So I thought I would address that here quickly, okay? And so my background, really, just quickly, is I'm an accounting background, MBA, and I worked in banking most of my life. The last 26 years of my career, I worked for J.P. Morgan Chase. And then after I retired, and I was sort of involved in a bunch of different kinds of activities, but because of COVID, those sort of were winding down. And then so happened at my 80th birthday, just before that, I had rotator cuff problems, and I had to have rotator cuff surgery. And so I really couldn't do anything for a fairly long period of time, so I had a lot of time on my hands. And just coincidentally, so very early on in that process, I'm watching more television than usual, and I see this guy come on, and he'd written a book, and it's called The Uninhabitable Earth. I thought, oh, that seems kind of interesting. I still get the book, so I got the book. I read it. I said, well, this is really, there's important information here. So what I decided to do was, I was in some discussion groups. We met, for 2 hours once a week on Zoom. And so I said, well, I'm going to present this material to them. And so we were scheduled to do 2-hour sessions. We had the first session. We started the second session. About 10 minutes into it, I finally said, we need to stop this. And they said, why? I said, well, this discussion's going nowhere. I said, what do you mean? We're having a great discussion. I said, yeah, where everybody's talking, but there isn't one single person that's changed their mind. I don't think 1 iota, okay? I don't think anybody had changed their mind 1/10 of 1%. So clearly, this material is just not effective. And by then, I had sort of become really convinced we had a problem. I mean, before that, I sort of had listened to Al Gore do his thing. I said, that sort of makes sense, but I didn't spend any time about it other than, yeah, I think that probably makes sense. So I said to them, I said, why don't you do this? Why don't you give me the opportunity to come back and see if I can present this material in a way that will resonate with you? Because I've now become convinced we really have a serious problem. And I said, sure. Since then, I've probably spent about 2,000 hours on this thing, doing research and doing some videos and doing some public speaking and etc. on this topic. Okay, so that sort of got us to. That's sort of what drove me to doing the YouTube channel. Is I decided that was probably the best way to communicate this material, and I really believe we have a very, very serious problem. And the more research I do, every single day for months. The more I do, the more I learn, the more concerned I become, quite frankly. And I find that we're at this very frustrating place. And I don't care if you're a believer in that we have a climate crisis or you're a skeptic about it. The one common trait is that I don't think anybody, or hardly anybody, really understands how serious the problem is and how urgently we need to act. And so that's sort of what motivating me to go do this, okay? It's to get people to understand the urgency to this question. It's not a problem we're going to address 50 years from now or 30 years from now. We need to start addressing it now. And I guess the other thing, I happen to be a Christian, and it's sort of consistent with my religious beliefs too, in terms of what the Bible says, in terms of we're supposed to be stewards of the earth, and we're supposed to be, help your neighbor, love your neighbor like yourself, and clearly, to do that, you've got to really address the climate issue. Okay. I guess there was actually, as I think about it, as a side comment, there was really, I've already seen one encouraging comment, and that was one pastor just happened to mention to me. He said, remember that Moses really started his mission at age 80. So I guess maybe I'll take that as the one encouraging person who tried to urge me on here. So the other question, though, we typically got is, what's the purpose of this channel? Is it educational or is it action-oriented? What are you really trying to do here? And then the third question that frequently came up was, why are you using the name Ron Papa Schmidt? And I'll address those next two with separate slides. And then the other thing, we got a bunch of suggestions, which are really, really helpful. One was like shorten the videos, reduce the amount of information on screens at one point in time, and correct typos, and just a whole bunch of really helpful things. And also a lot of comments about how hard it was to figure out how to find the video you wanted and how to navigate the channel. So we're trying to incorporate all of that. Again, since this is the first time I'm doing this, we're learning on the go. So hopefully you'll see some improvement in the quality of what we're doing as we go on here, okay? So let's get to the question of purpose. The primary purpose is really educational, okay? And we take a systemic view of this, okay? So it's, how do Earth systems work? How does the climate system work? Why do we have thunderstorms and hurricanes and tornadoes? And so we're going to look at it from a systems perspective, okay, or a systemic perspective. And we'll do a little bit on individual action, but most of it's going to be, a system really approach. And then we're going to have 5 major categories that we'll sort of talk about here. One is the why, and the why is sort of like, okay, why do we need to get to net zero greenhouse gases? Another why question is, why now? Or science questions of, well, how does Earth's climate system really work? How does atmospheric circulation work? Does climate change impact thunderstorms and hurricanes and tornadoes? Or in the stakes section, what happens when temperatures actually increase? How does that impact us in terms of hunger, flooding, other kinds of issues? Or the future hope now in terms of, well, okay, so if we need to get to net zero greenhouse gases, this is going to take a lot of time and money. How do we do that? And so we'll talk about that in that section. And in the last section, the Future Hope Act, we'll talk about some individual action items there, okay? And the other sort of purpose for this thing, I would like to have it also be sort of a recurring kind of reference document. So you can go to that, if we have a major hurricane. So, I remember seeing this video about hurricanes. How do they actually come about? And so you could really maybe use it as a refresher or a reference a tool. And then the other thing is action. And we do need to get to net zero greenhouse gases now. And so that does take action. So I really do want to motivate you to do something, okay? A phrase you'll see frequently throughout my presentations is a title to an Eagles song that says, do something. I think it just so appropriately says what the message I'm trying to get across. And there's some lyrics to that below here, okay? So let's move on to the next question. Why the name Papa Schmidt? Well, it turns out that in my late life here, I've been blessed with 2 young granddaughters and 1 great-granddaughter. The granddaughter, one is a little over 2 years old. The other one is just a little bit over 1 year old. The granddaughter's about 1 year. The great-granddaughter's 1 year old. And it's just been an absolute blessing in my life. And for some reason, they ended up calling me Papa. I don't know why, but they did, okay? And at the 1-year-old birthdays, a birthday party for the 1-year-old, they decided to have a watermelon theme birthday party. So I got this T-shirt that said Papa on it with a watermelon theme. You can see the picture here on the left-hand side. And then the 2-year-old got this really colorful purse at the thing. She wanted me to hold it for the picture, so I did. So why am I using the name? Well, they are probably my primary motivation for trying to do something here. You know, as I watch the parents and also us as grandparents, and I watch all their friends, our kids' friends who have kids the same age as they do, and I look at how much effort they're putting in to raising their kids, making sure they're eating the right kinds of foods, getting the right kinds of education, they're learning work habits, learning how to be good human beings, responsible human beings. And yet, when 25 years from now, when they're 26, 27, 28, just starting the absolute prime of their lives, what the climate scientists are telling us is that their living conditions, they use the word dire. And nobody's spending any time on that. We need to also spend some time on making sure the environment they're growing up in is going to be there so they can, live their full potential lives, whatever they choose to be. Okay. The other thing is, I use the term, is this can be really kind of depressing work. Okay. First of all, you're doing research which tells you we have a problem with the climate, and then second of all, whether you're a climate, if you're a person who believes in climate change, or we have a major crisis, or you're against it, nobody fundamentally wants to hear the message I'm out here portraying, okay? And so it can get kind of tough at times. And I think by using the term Papa Schmidt, I'm saying that term at least once or twice a day, and it just sort of reminds me why I'm doing this. It helps energize me. I just had this other comment I thought I'd throw out there. We're almost at the end of the road. And that's because we've been kicking the can down the road for decades. And I hate to tell you this, folks, but we're about to the end of the road. Okay. Let's jump to now channel navigation, okay? One of the things we decided to do that we thought might be helpful was to put a number on each one of the new slides or videos that we're generating here. So as an example, I showed 10A. It would fit in the science section under atmosphere, and we talk about atmospheric circulation, part 1. So I'm using the A because there's more than one video associated with it. There'll be a B, which will be part 2. And the second thing we're doing is we're showing the title in bright yellow also to help make it stand out if you see a bunch of these slides together on a TV screen or on a computer screen, so you can more easily figure out what's going on. And the next thing we're doing is we're creating a playlist, and we're going to put the video in the appropriate playlist, and I'll talk about more of that in a second. And so he asked me, what's the easiest way to get to these videos? The easiest way is if you see, you'd enter in net zero, and then now, only capitalize now and put an exclamation point at it. That will get you, I think, directly to this website in our material, because there's a lot of other people out there talking about net zero and other kinds of things. But if you capitalize the now and put an exclamation point at it, it should get you directly to the material from this channel. Now, if you know the number, after you enter net zero now in, if you put like 10A in, you should get directly to that video then. And then I guess the other thing is if you go to a playlist, you can then find the video through a playlist. So if you're interested in, if you know it's a science topic, you could go to the science playlist. And I'm going to put URLs in here for each one of the playlists in the notes for this presentation. So you can get there directly to a particular playlist if you want. So let's go through the playlists that we've created. We've got two fundamental ones here, or global ones. One we're calling the comprehensive playlist, and that will show all videos, really all full-length videos. If I start doing some short 2 or 3 minute videos or something, we won't put them there. But basically, anytime we create a video, it will go into the comprehensive playlist. Now, that video may appear in multiple playlists. I'll talk about the foundational core or one of the other playlists you'll see later on. Now, I decided to create a separate playlist because some people just want to go one place and get just a fundamental understanding of how Earth's climate systems works, what the issues are of getting to net zero. And so we're going to take those videos, most of them are going to be overview kinds of videos, and we're going to put them in one place called the core. And once we get that completed, we won't be adding many new videos to this particular section. So that's designed to be, if you just want to get to the basics, if you play all the videos within that category, you'll come away with a really solid understanding, I think, of of how Earth's climate systems work and what the issues are, etc., and things like that. Now, the other thing we have is then we've created playlists for each one of these categories. And I talked about the categories before. And so anytime we have a video that fits into one of these categories, it will appear here. So let's say we have a foundational core video for science, for example. Well, it would appear in the comprehensive playlist. It would appear in the foundational core playlist, and it would also appear in the science playlist. And by the way, you'll be able to tell it's a foundational core video because in the upper right-hand corner, we'll put the words in yellow, also foundational core. And so that's where these playlists will be here. So let's wrap this up if we could. Okay, one other thought here. We're doing a very infancy in terms of creating some of the videos for this channel. And if we don't have a video yet, like we've created no videos as of the point I'm issuing this for the Future Hope section, that playlist will not be available until such time as we actually have a video in it. And then it will be opened up to the public. So what can we do? Well, I hope you share my concern here about the urgency of dealing with this subject. And I think if you listen to the videos, hopefully we'll be able to educate you and convince you that that is true. But there's one important thing you could do. One is you could subscribe. And I say that for two reasons. One, from your perspective, what happens is that you will then automatically be notified when new videos become available. And then the second thing is it helps out a little bit in terms of the YouTube algorithms. Because when people have a question about net zero or one of the topics we're talking about here, YouTube sort of moves them to the resources that are most popular. And so the more subscriptions you have and the higher rated your videos are, the more likely they'll actually get to the material in this particular channel. And I think what makes this channel different from other channels is that we're focusing on the urgency of getting to net zero now. And we're trying to do that by providing you with a comprehensive understanding of the issues, believing that education is the best way of letting people learn what to do and to motivate them to take action. So the other things you can do is obviously rate the video, but probably more important is just if you have a comment, we would appreciate it, particularly if you have a suggestion in terms of what new videos you'd like us to do or what we could do to improve future videos. We'd really appreciate that feedback. And then also I'd urge you to sort of share this link with friends and family. We need to get this message out. Because the truth is, our political leaders and our corporate leaders are not going to solve this problem. It's going to have to be a bottom-up issue. At the top, these people are just too influenced, let's say, by special interest, who maybe have some short-term benefits out of seeing the status quo continued. And then finally, just do something, okay? And thank you very much for giving us the courtesy of your time to listen to this video. And I hope you'll listen to some of our other videos and become actively involved by sharing your comments, etc. Thank you and have a great day.